Hey YouTube, what's going on? Mythion here, just playing around in my Ars Magica 2 test world. You may notice up on the side there's a new addition to the GUI. This is not permanent, it's just some debug information, so don't focus too much on that. And I'll get into what that is actually debugging a little bit later. I just wanted to kind of give a little demo here as to how the progress is coming along, show you guys some of the cool features I've been working on implementing, and just try and get you excited for the release of Ars Magica 2. As of yet, there is no release date. I don't know when it's going to be done. I'm sticking to my tried and true, it'll be ready when it's ready. But rest assured, I am working on it. So let's jump right in. First thing I want to show you guys is there's finally some sort of in-game wiki, and it is called the Arcane Compendium. Now, this book, I have no idea how you're going to acquire it in-game yet. I haven't even gotten that far. But once you do have it, you right-click, and it opens up, and you can read about anything in the mod. There's even guides, compendium, how-to, introduction, moving stuff along. There's info on different bosses, spell components, different mechanics of the mod. It's all in there. If we go into items, for example, you can look at Archmage armor, robes. You can see a little bit of lore about each of them, and you can see the crafting recipe. And it's all in there. The compendium is intralinking, which means if you see text in green when you hover over something, that means that there's a compendium entry for it. So you can click on it, and it'll take you to that item. And clicking back will take you back to the main page where you can dig into something else. The one thing I wanted to draw attention to, well, two really. One, mobs. If you go to mobs, you see there's a couple of new ones in here so far. I'm not going to tell much about what they are. But if you go into the mob itself, you'll see that there's actually a render of the mob. The compendium's not done yet. I still have to fill in a lot of information. But something that's kind of cool is this is done in real time. So if you do a texture pack, or if resource packs allow different models for whatever reason, I don't really know, this is going to reflect your changes, which means good things, really. It's going to look like what it looks like in game. The other cool thing is how the compendium handles structures. Ars Magica 2 is going to use a few more multi-block structures. You can see that there's the 3 nexi and the gateway, but there's a new one called a crafting altar. When you click on it, you'll see that the structure is actually rendered in real time in the compendium, and each block can be hovered over. And you can see what it is. All the intralinking still works. So you can quickly scan through the layers, say, oh, I don't know what this is, click on it, and there's your recipe. I'm going to make it so this back button will eventually take you back. It'll kind of leave a breadcrumb trail and take you back to where you were. Don't have it working yet. But it should be a lot easier to find your way through the mod by following the guides. It'll walk you through everything. It's just a really handy feature. So that's part number 1. I'll just put that back for now. So you may have noticed that structure, the crafting altar. Well, I actually have one over here. But it's as of yet incomplete. It doesn't have the main center block, which is the new one that's been added. But luckily, I have that right here. Now, there's a few extra things in here. I will get into that. But let's start by putting our crafting altar actually on our hotbar and placing the final block in. So this multi-block is now complete. You can actually use this to craft your spells. This is how you make your spells. In Ars Magica 2, every spell is custom, meaning it's comprised of shapes. So you have projectile shape, touch shape, area of effect shape. There are several others. I've got 11 of them right now. You can, and then you can add components, which do different things, and then you can also add modifiers, which modify the shape. So every single spell that you make, like I said, is going to be component-based. So it'll do exactly what you tell it to. So crafting is done at the multi-block. You start the crafting process by throwing a rune in, and it will disappear. I don't have any visual effects in. That's how early this is. Like, there are no visuals. There will be. But rest assured, the crafting process has started. So once you've started, the first thing you have to add is a shape. So we're going to add a projectile in. That got eaten up. And then I'm going to add dig. So what I have in there is projectile dig. And what do you think that's going to do? You throw spell parchment into finish, and it's going to do exactly what you think it would. It's going to fire a projectile. Wherever that projectile hits, it's going to dig. Now, it's just given me a generic projectile spell. Whenever you make a spell, the first time you try and cast it, you're going to be presented with this nifty little UI, which will allow you to name your spell. So we'll call it Projectile Dig, and you can pick any icon you want. I'm going to go with this one. And there are over 400 icons to choose from, so you can make it look like whatever you want. As soon as you've entered a name and selected an icon properly, you'll be able to cast the spell, like so. Boom. Just like you'd expect. And it digs. Hurrah. If you've entered it incorrectly, the moment you try and cast, the UI will just pop up again. So that's spell crafting 101. So you can make all kinds of them. So for example, if I want to make a touch fling spell, so it's a short range spell, you have to be within touch range. And it's basically Gust from AM1. I've renamed that to Fling. And as you can see, I'm super creative with my names. Icon. I'm going to pick that one. And sure enough, I have my spell. That one will come into play a little later. Now, what you can do is you can create what are called spell stages. So what you can chain shapes together. So if you want a projectile that you shoot out, and where it hits, it'll do something in an AoE, or a radius, for example, that's totally possible. You can do a projectile that creates a zone, projectile that creates a rune, you can do a beam that does an AoE, you can do so many different things. It's totally up to your imagination and whatever resources you have. So if I want to make a projectile, area of effect, dig, that is exactly what you throw in. Order does matter. And then I want to do a radius modifier because I want that radius to be a little bigger. And we have projectile AoE dig. And I'm going to give it some bigger icon. Now if I fire this over here, you'll see, boom! And it digs a much larger area. You can stack the modifiers, so you can add a whole bunch of them. I'm going to be capping it at 3 because when I was testing, I added 20 and I ended up trying to dig 512,000 square blocks. That's a little bit much. So I'll be capping it at probably about 3. Spell books work pretty much in the same way that you remember them. You just enter your spells in and close the book. However, the name, as you change your spells in the spell book, it will show up in the information bar, so you have a better idea of what you're casting, as well as your custom icons all show up. So if I do my projectile dig out of the spell book, works just like you'd expect it would. No different. Whoops. I forgot I filled this all in. 1 second. Okay, so continuing on. I'm going to take my touch fling out of here because that's demonstrating a later feature. Okay, so I'll put that away for now, and also when you hover over it, it shows you what your current spell is. So, now I'm going to show you what this UI on the side means. What this is debugging for me right now is the Affinity System has changed drastically, and if you've read the AM2 post, you'll know that affinities now have something called a depth. So as you cast your spells, your affinity percentage, or your depth, will go up for your current affinity, and then all other ones, depending on how far in opposition they are, will decrease. So what that means is, 1, the further you are into affinities, you get specific advantages and disadvantages. And 2, you can have multiple affinities at the same time if you play your cards right. So, I'm just going to give you a quick demo of what a couple of the affinities do. We'll start by running over here, and I'm going to grab myself an air affinity. So it just set my air affinity to 100%, you'll see. And the first thing you'll notice is that I can jump a lot higher. I can jump 3 blocks up, no problem. And I can get to the top of things that I wouldn't have even dreamed about being able to get to before. The other thing is I can fall farther before taking damage. So if I jump off of here, that might be a little far, but I only took 1 heart of damage, so that's not too bad. If I just walk off of this, you'll see nothing, even though that was a 5-block fall. So, Air Affinity has a couple of advantages. The disadvantage is if it starts to rain or storm and you get caught outside, if you stay out too long, you're going to start getting blown around by the storm. And if I were to spawn rain in right now with full Air Affinity and just kind of stand out here, I could be very well blown out to sea. It's very easy to avoid. There is a grace period that you can go out into the rain for, but that's the disadvantage. If I give myself Ice Affinity, which I've just set to 100%, like it says on the forum post, if you just sneak near water, you can freeze stuff in front of you. If you have over 50% depth, you'll notice that you can also do the same thing with lava. And again, all of this information is inside the compendium, so you would go under Mechanics, Affinities, and you can read about all the different affinities that there are and what they do. So that's all in there. There will be no tabbing out to a wiki required, which is awesome. Right, moving on. I've added a couple of new blocks. They're mostly for decoration. This one is a particle emitter, so I've basically opened up my particle system. So when I place that down, you'll notice that it starts emitting some cool particles. If you right-click, you can customize them entirely. So I'm going to have a couple that don't show up. It's still early. But let's do... Sure, those look kind of cool. And I want them to sync a little bit faster than that. So as I change the slider, you'll see that they'll go faster. So there's that. Or you can change that around. You can color them. So there's the default color. You can make them random colors, or you can customize their color. So if I want some teal sparkles, why not? And I want them a little bigger. So you can scale them up. You can change how much they spawn. You can change how often. It's all in there. And when you're all done, you're happy with how things look, you can hide the border, which will give you just a pure emitter. Also, it says you will need a crystal wrench to change this block once you close the UI. I'm not sure on that mechanic yet. I may change it, I may not. I do know you will be able to use the crystal wrench to copy the settings from one particle emitter to another, so you don't have to recreate your settings in this GUI over and over again. It'll just be a quick click on the one you want to copy, then click on the one you want to copy it to. Kind of the same way that you set your power, but in these, the crystal wrench will serve to copy your settings. So once I'm all done here, that's it. I have particles. And it's that easy. They take no power. It's just something cool for decoration. Awesome. Something else I added is another use for Vintium, the Vintium torch. So these are nice bright blocks. You can place them down. They look kind of similar to regular torches, just a little bit more of a magical flair to them. They're a little bit brighter, and they use Vintium. So that's something neat that you can do. Nothing other special about that. It's Vintium on top of a stick. The other thing I added is a caster rune. Now this works the exact same way as a caster block. And even that it gathers power in the same way, the whole 9 yards. The only thing is, it doesn't require a redstone signal to cast. In fact, it will ignore redstone signals. The way this thing casts, in good old familiar GUI, is it will cast when you walk over top of it. So I have my touch fling, which is 20 mana. This thing should have enough. So as I walk over it, I will get thrown into the air because it will cast when I walk over it. Once again, this thing isn't programmed to follow the casting modes and everything like that, but it will be set. So you can do some pretty cool stuff with this. You can buff yourself. You can set some traps for your enemies, as it were. You can put some cool particle emitters on top of it. You can really go nuts. And that about wraps up what I wanted to show you guys. There's lots more. All the affinities are in. I wasn't originally going to show you this, but I think I will. If I bring up my rune of debugging, I'll give you a quick sneak peek into the skill trees and how they work. Let's give myself 10 skill points. So if I bring up this UI, you're given 1 skill point to start. I think I'm going to have to up that to 2. but you're given a UI which shows all of the different shapes, which are a square border, components, which are the octagonal border, and modifiers, which are the diamond border. And there are 3 trees. There's offense, defense, and utility. And you can kind of see that you can progress through these, very much like the achievements UI, but as you unlock them, it uses your skill points, and so on and so forth. So I've learned projectile, I can learn physical damage, and they unlock in a tree-like fashion. So there's offense, which has, well, offensive stuff in it. You've got some very useful shapes and stuff like that. You've got your defense, which has more kind of defensive stuff. It has a little bit of ways to defend yourself by attacking, but not a whole heck of a lot. And then you have your utility, which is kind of like your farming and some of your buffs and other things like that. You may recognize some of the icons, others you may not recognize, and be able to guess what they do. So that's the skill trees as they are right now. You can progress through them. Let's just go down through here. Just drill right down. Just spend some skill points. So you'll notice that as I ran out of skill points, I can't lock anything else. Anything that you don't have the ability to learn is grayed out. Every single one of these shapes, components, and modifiers is working in the mod, so that's all in there now. And you can mix and match them. We're testing that quite thoroughly right now. So it opens up a lot of fun. On servers, I'm debating having the ability to lock players to one tree. So it'd be a config setting where, if you pick offense, you could say, well, if you pick offense, you can only go to the second level in defense and utility, kind of thing. So server admins will be able to choose how much it's locked down. So if you don't want to allow some of the more powerful effects, and maybe you'll only allow your players to get to kind of this area in here, if they're not primarily a utility mage, then you can do that. It might be good for some RPG servers. I don't know. If there's an overwhelming response against it, then I won't bother. Or that's kind of cool, but I might not use it. Won't really bother. But I think it'd be kind of cool to put it on a server, and it'd add a neat cooperation dynamic. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, that is the kind of intro to Ars Magica 2, where it's at right now. We've got some new mobs, we've got some new bosses, but I'm not quite ready to show those off yet, so you guys are just going to have to wait. What I will do is I will create one extra spell. So I go rune, I want to go channeled, and I want to just show you guys how telekinesis has changed, because this is actually kind of cool. I'm kind of proud of this one. I can't spell. There we go. It's been a long week. Okay, so you got telekinesis. Let's say you have a whole bunch of your items scattered all over the place and you want to pick them up. But let's say you don't want to bring them to you. Well, now you don't have to. As you channel telekinesis, it actually creates an area in front of you, and you can move stuff around with it. So you can say, I want it to go over there. Or if you want it to come to you, you just drag it in and pick it back up. Cool stuff. All right, guys, so hopefully you've gotten a little bit of an insight into Ars Magica 2. It's some pretty neat stuff. There's a lot to do yet. It's not going to be out for a little while, but, keep plugging away at it, and we'll get there. So anyways, I'd be interested to hear your suggestions, your thoughts, what you like, what you don't, and, I will see you all next time.